Good evening, everyone, and our sincere apologies for starting late this evening. We had a closed session meeting that went a little bit long, and I do very much appreciate your patience. And thank you and welcome to your council chambers for our regular council meeting of Wednesday, September the 25th. I'd like to advise you that this meeting is being audio, video recorded, and live streamed on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. And for more information, please contact the clerk's office. I'd like to also thank those people who are watching us live tonight from your living rooms. And I'll ask Councillor Drodge if he would please deliver the land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you, Your Worship. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beausoleil First Nations, Chippewas of Rama First Nations, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nations, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society, and we are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit.
Thank you so much, Councillor Drodge. Just one other little housekeeping item. If you have your cell phone on you, if you could please set it to silent so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings. And then I would ask the clerk if we have anyone signed up for open forum this evening. Madam Clerk, do you know if anyone is, oh, we're going out to check. Thank you. We have no one signed up for open forum this evening, so we'll go straight to approval of the agenda. So the recommendation is that the contents of the agenda for September 25th, 2024 be approved as printed. And this agenda was published on the website 1 week ago. And mover and a seconder, please, too. Thank you. Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, I'd ask any member of council if they have a disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of the items this evening. Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you during the meeting, please let it be known at that time, and the clerks will do the proper documentation. So we're on to item 5, which is presentations and petitions, and we do have a presentation tonight from the Simcoe County Youth Reach. So we ask Simcoe County Youth Reach, please, whenever you're ready, to stand at the podium, and we're looking forward to hearing your story.
Well, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. Jeanette's kind of the numbers person, so she'll kind of get into the exact logistics. The reason I just want to start is Youth Reach means a lot to me. Our original gala dinner, I was a guest, and I was immediately just intrigued with it. I needed to know more, and the reason it means a lot to me is I grew up in Innisfil. We moved here in 1989. It was quite a bit of a different town. We're not here to talk about that because that's a discussion in itself, but it's one of the areas in our participation is one of the lowest, so we just want to spread awareness, let people know more about the program so we can kids can say yes. We had Kenneth Fowler as one of the guests at our gala dinner, and he suggested this platform, so I thank you, Kenneth, for allowing us to kind of spread the word this way. So I'll pass it over to Jeanette. She's kind of the expert and our fearless leader, but I guess I'm the local voice, so I got kind of forced to go first, so thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Jeanette Haywood, and I'm the Executive Director of a small little but mighty charity here in Simcoe County called Youth Reach. We were founded originally as a chapter of KidSport, but in 2015, we decided to strike out on our own, so we wrapped up the KidSport activity and broke out into what is now Youth Reach. Our mandate is that we provide grants to families who cannot afford the fees for extracurricular activities, and we've been doing that since we were incorporated and received our charitable status. And to this point in time, we have given over 1,870 grants We have put over $300,000 out into the community to support families of need. Most of our families come from what would be labeled as low-income families. Our household income maximum is $50,000, which is well above the LICO, but still, that's not a lot of money these days in a family. And so the costs of everything from dance, music, art classes, skating, hockey, baseball, everything has gone up exponentially since the pandemic. We were the only charity operating during the pandemic because some of our program providers pivoted and were offering sessions online, and we helped kids stay active as they could during that period of time. So, how do we do what we do? We do everything by fundraising and grant writing. So since 2015, we have raised well over $500,000, and we are very lucky to have generous supporters in donors and family foundations. We've also received some funding through the County of Simcoe for the poverty reduction work and the Simcoe County Investment Fund. But that's not a guarantee, and we have not had it for 2 years, and that's where our donors and grant writing comes in. We believe that the activities that our children are in, that's one part of it. But the beauty of what we do is we believe in the leadership development, the resilience, the confidence, the capacity building our youth experience when they're in an activity, and that is the priority we seek. And so as we have been granting since this time, yes, we still have families that are coming back to us year over year since we've started. We've had others move on from us and come back as donors, which is absolutely lovely. We also have something that we firmly believe in is when there is a youth who has been in an activity for several years and being funded by us, that could actually lead to post-secondary education opportunities and developing a brighter future. And so we have something called Youth Wing, which you'll notice the little icon on the side. And what that is the leadership development plan that is based on the rationale of nothing for us without us. So our youth develop their own plans. They present them to me first. I'm told it can be a little intimidating, but then they have to sit down with our committee and our board to make their case. And so instead of just offering $300 within a 12-month period, we've been known to fund up to $3,000 for a young person to then go on and get their coaching or compete nationally. Our last Youth Wing recipient actually went on at the national levels in Canada to compete in trampoline and mini tramp and win gold medals. And I'm happy to report he is now wrapping up his second year at Laurentian University in Sudbury. He is a youth leader at Laurentian University, and he is looking at becoming a kinesiologist. He was one of 4 children being raised by a single mom, and he came through Youth Reach and presented his leadership plan, and now he is well on his path. So if I can get someone to flip to the next slide. Oh, there it is. Didn't know I had that there. Is it working? Nope. There we go. So one of the things that we also do is we believe in validating our data. So we have done several things. Every year we offer a survey, and you can see some of the results up on the screen. Our families tell us that 88% of our children feel more like they have a sense of belonging and community. I think the most important one of all of this is they feel like a normal kid, because the stigma of living in low income and poverty is something that every child that lives it faces it. 89% that said that through the activity that they could achieve and set important goals. We also do one other thing, and we have done something called a social report on impact. And I immediately think of Brent's wife, Lynn Thomas, who is a fundraiser as well. And SOROI tells us that for every dollar invested in Youth Reach, there is a $24 net return in the community. What does that mean? It means that if a child is successful in an extracurricular activity and starts to feel all those things, they are less likely to be in youth justice. They are less likely to be in the social service sector. They are capable of breaking the cycle of poverty. And that's what is the most motivating factor for us. And what does that look like? It looks like, if I can get it to do it one more time. There it goes. That's what it looks like. So we provide grants throughout every community in the county of Simcoe. The challenge for us in your community, you are our lowest access point. Your families aren't coming to see us, and we want to change that. We want to help the families that live in Innisfil be able to participate in programs in Innisfil and be able to work with providers, your local business owners, here in Innisfil. And you too will have kids that look like this. So thank you for your time. I'm open for any questions, but if you do know of any family that needs a little bit of help, tell them to come check out Youth Reach. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much to Jeanette and, is it Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It's very much appreciated. If you don't mind, I'll just ask council members if they have any questions for you.
Absolutely.
And members of council, questions? Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. Not so much a question, but a thank you for coming tonight. I was introduced via Mike to the organization, and the more I learn about it, the more I love it. The idea that it's not limiting in the potential that a child has, that you open so many doors. It doesn't matter if it's martial arts, if it's sports, if it's songwriting, if it's writing groups, or whatever the case may be. You're giving them the opportunity, and in a time where the growth in our community has exploded to such a degree that the infrastructure is still trying to catch up, and you are filling a very large and a very important gap in our community. So I wish you nothing but success, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ices.
Thank you. I'd like to echo some of those comments from Deputy Mayor Fowler. But I also had a question. Just curious if you have a reason why Innisfil would be kind of a lower involved community. Is it lack of knowledge about the program? I'm also wondering if you come across a hesitancy for families to ask for help.
Oh, definitely.
With this.
What's the saying? Pride goeth before the fall. We work with all of the social service sectors. So we're partnered with ODSP. We are partnered with Ontario Works. We are partnered with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, all of the providers in the system. But part of the challenge is getting the family to take the step to apply. And that is always the most difficult one. We are super, super fortunate, and we're seeing the upswing. We just set a record of 309 grants awarded at the close of our fiscal year, which is August 31st. We set a record in July of this year, awarding the highest number of grants, 44 in a single month. And we believe part of that is because our Simcoe County District School Board said yes to us. We have been able to distribute our materials through their newsletters. We have partnered with Glowing Hearts Charity to put our cards in their backpacks. We have tried to take down as many barriers to application. If our auditors could just get in line with everything, it'd be so much easier. We still require an NOA. We have to verify household income, but we don't ask families to walk in with a box full of paperwork that says, I need help. We just ask for an NOA. They complete the application online. We still get quite a number of applicants coming by texts and photos. So there is an awareness gap, I believe, as well, and we're doing our best to fill that gap, but we don't have a big marketing budget because we want our kids in programs, not in marketing. So that's why doing presentations like this and having, Kenneth, your support and getting our messaging out, I would ask you to all become a raving army of supporters and advocates that tell the story of Youth Reach. Everything that we do is on our website. Please check us out. And just, if you have questions, email them to me. More than happy to find a way to help more families in your community.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I'm going to guess you're from somewhere around Aurelia, if you knew Brent's wife, but...
Brent's wife and I actually worked together for a number of years on AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals.
Oh, okay.
And so, yes, we've worked together on several different projects.
But where is your headquarters? Where are you?
We don't even have a physical space.
Okay.
My home office is based out of Barrie, but we will move through the community. We do our signature event out in Oro. We'll try and get into as many communities as possible to be able to share our story and tell people we're here.
Wonderful.
We're actually out granting some of the larger grant and funders for what we do in our communities. So we're pretty proud of that.
Thank you for that. And so, yes, definitely coming here tonight is a good way to get your message in the community. So thank you for doing that and taking the time. But I would also suggest you reach out. We do have an Innisfil Community Foundation that supports Innisfil charities. It's a separate corporation, and would suggest that you reach out to them as well.
I know Whitney well as well, so I will give her, I have already talked to her about getting some funding and seeing what that looks like, so I will follow up with that as well.
Wonderful. Councillor Drodge and then Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, speaking upon those things, so I'm part of a group called 100 Men That Give a Damn. I don't know if you've ever heard of us before.
Yes. Yes.
But definitely we should coordinate and get you to do a presentation. I think it would be good for
That would be amazing.
us to
And
have.
you have my coordinates through the submissions that we made to Patty. So
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Waters.
I thought might also be helpful is that as our Idea Lab does a lot of social networking, and they see a lot of youth through that, so it might be an opportunity to touch base with them and see how they might be able to get the word out through our library system.
I know that we have some of our rec cards with Erin and her team at the Idea Lab, and I'm going to leave a few here. Patty said I could leave a few on in the lobby, and the more that we can get, we deliberately picked bright colors because we want to stand out from the materials that are left behind and catch people's eyes. So yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I hope your time here tonight was fruitful, and thank you so much for being here with us. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder, please, that the presentation by Simcoe County Youth Reach be received. Moved by Deputy Mayor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you once again.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. And sorry for keeping you waiting. No problem. Next, we have delegations. We're on item 6 of our agenda, and we have delegations by members of the public, invited guests, or members of staff. And our first delegation tonight is from Jessica Al-Onderi regarding Uber service. Please, Jessica. Oh, did I make a mistake? Oh, no, I did make a mistake. So we have, I'm sorry, another presentation. My apologies. Terribly sorry, Ms. Crawford. Please, whenever you're ready, please come up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deb Crawford. I'm here on behalf of the Innisfil Heritage Advisory Committee with a good news story. And I have Genevieve DeVries here, who's also on the committee. My other committee members all had other things planned for tonight, so it's just the two of us. So we're here to talk to you. More importantly, we're here to invite you to participate in Innisfil's first version of a Jane's Walk. And it's being organized by the Heritage Advisory Committee. It is going to be in the great little village of Lefroy. And we are here tonight to invite you and tell you a little bit more about that. Let me see if I can get this on here. There we go. The reason we decided to organize it like a Jane's Walk is because Jane's Walk, Jane Jacobs was all about good planning for communities, about bringing people together, about showing and telling stories, and getting to know your neighbor and being part of your community. They are all across the world. In 2023, as you can see by the slide, there were over 500 Jane's Walks. They're not just about heritage, they're about anything that matters within a community. It could be healthcare, it could be around a park, it could be around trails in an environmentally protected area. Because we're the Heritage Committee, Heritage works for us. So we decided just to fashion it along this, and we hope to join many others in the Jane's Walk in the future, perhaps other locations across Innisfil. Why Lefroy? Well, Lefroy is steeped in history. It's been around for a long time. It still has a bit of the core commercial area that was the village of Lefroy. And of course, we're the Heritage Committee, so we're interested in Lefroy for all of those reasons. And then, oops, let me see if we can go back here. So it is going to be on October 6th, noon until 2 p.m. It involves a walk around the village. We have individuals from the community, from descendants from some of the early settlers in the Lefroy area that are willing to talk about their stories, relate their experiences relative to the locations and the buildings and the history and heritage of Lefroy. We will start at the Grange Hall, come around Church Street, down Killarney Beach Road. We will only be walking on the north side of Killarney Beach Road, and swing around, come back to the Grange Hall at the end, have some apple cider and some cookies that are being made by all of the organizers and the participants. So just to sort of keep this, obviously I don't get the remote too often at home, right? So we do hope to see you there. It is, as I said, starting at the Grange Hall. It takes place, rain or shine, snow as well. Make sure you wear safe boots, safe shoes, whatever kind of outdoor clothing you need. As I mentioned, we have refreshments and we have our storytellers, and we're looking forward to having a good time on Sunday afternoon in October. So I would just like to again invite you as council, staff, listeners to participate in the walk. Just come on by and we'll have a good time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the town staff for helping organize this, promote this, and the Innisfil Historical Society for their contribution to it, and of course, all of the residents of Lefroy who will be participating. So thank you very much. Put it on your calendar, and we hope you'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deb and Genevieve, for being here with us tonight to talk about it. I'll just ask members of council if they have any questions. I don't see any. I had a question, just do we need to register ahead of time, or is it just whoever shows up?
It's just whoever shows up.
Wonderful.
On the Facebook site, the town's Facebook site, I see that there were, as of this morning, 74 people interested. There was a few who had confirmed, but you don't have to register, you just have to show up.
Great. Well, I have it in my calendar, and I sure hope to be there.
Excellent.
And I know that all of the members of the Innisfil Historical Society got an invite as well. So
Yep.
I hope it's a wonderful day and not snowing.
Me too. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the recommendation would be that the presentation regarding Lefroy Heritage Walk, Jane's Walk, be received, and that would be moved by Councillor Drudge and seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. And now we'll go on to our delegations, and my apologies, Jessica, whenever you're ready, please come forward. And I must say, you have the most well-behaved child.
Thank you.
Well done.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to appear before Council and talk about a challenge I face with Uber Transit. I believe it might be a problem for other families with young children. I would like to begin by saying that I think Uber Transit is an excellent public transport system for a town with a layout like ours, and it is helping thousands of people. I especially love Uber Transit because I grew up in South Africa, where most people either have to hitchhike or take taxis that don't follow the rules of the road. So this is a gift. As a family with a single car, I rely greatly on Uber Transit in our day-to-day life. Before moving to Innisfil, we lived in North York, where I also used public transport. In Toronto and Barrie, children younger than 12 ride for free. In the last 5 years, I didn't face any problems at first because my children and I were able to ride where we needed to go easily, as there weren't a number restriction during COVID. I'm not sure exactly when the 2 riders per family limit started, but I really face a problem during summer, when we use transit almost daily to take my children to activities and sports throughout town. This summer particularly was hard because my children played baseball, which is 4 nights a week. Often the driver would arrive and not be able to take us, as he may already have 2 other passengers, or he doesn't want to face the risk of rejecting future rides that will affect his rating. In this case, I would have to cancel the driver, pay for the fare, and call and wait for another Uber and pay again. Most families who use Uber are on a tight budget, and it is especially painful knowing that I must pay a higher charge when both my children are younger than 12. One of the town associates recommended I look at the Teen Ride program, but my son was 10 at the time, and I cannot send him alone in an Uber with a stranger. I realized I was not the only one who faced this problem when I spoke to a mom who has 2 kids under 5. During this ride, she said to me she can't go anywhere during summer when her child is home from kindergarten because the drivers reject her if she doesn't pay a higher fare. The regular fare that is not subsidized by town is substantially more expensive, especially if you're living in Guildford or Cookstown or in Lefroy, as I do, and am going to the YMCA or any library. Last week, I asked on Alcona Chats, a community Facebook page people from Innisfil use, if anyone else is experiencing similar challenges. 2 relevant responses was a teen mom who said her 3 teenagers can't take the same Uber, so she has to pay double. And another mom said that because her husband works all day, she can't go anywhere with 2 young children. She has to pay double the price. In conclusion, I hope there is some way you can speak to Uber about having an option for families who have children younger than 12, so that we can add the extra passenger without having to pay more. I feel like I am being penalized for having 2 dependents. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And I should have said you have 2 well-behaved children, not just 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to members of council for questions, I'm going to throw it over to Mr. Correa, who's our manager of planning, and the Uber file is his, and see if he has any comments.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Dolan. So we are aware of the concerns respecting youth and children and teenagers, and we have been having active discussions with Uber. It's staff's intention to report back to council with a variety of options for consideration in the future.
Thank you, Brendan. Do we know when in the future that might come forward?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, I don't have an exact date, but we will let the council know.
Thank you for that. And then we will in turn, let Jessica know as well when this is going to be coming back to council.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for your time. So any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to say thank you very much for coming out. It's nice that the public will come out and speak to us and let us know what issues are. This is the second time that we've had somebody come out and let us know about an issue with Uber. We think it's, for our town, it works, but there are a few hiccups that we need to iron out. So I thank you very much for your time and bringing those issues to town council and to staff. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, mover and a seconder, please, that the delegation regarding Uber service be received. Moved by Councillor Waters, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. So stay in touch, Jessica, and hopefully we'll get some good news from Uber. Thank you. Next is item 6.2, which is Niharika Bandura, who's our sustainability catalyst, and she's going to give us a presentation on our long-awaited Innisfil Integrated Sustainability Master Plan. Whenever you're ready, Nahakara.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe Andrea Lee, the Director of Growth, is going to get us started, and I'll be following her.
I apologize, Director Lee. I see you now on screen. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan and members of council. I will start the presentation and Niharika will carry on. We'll sort of go back and forth in terms of the slides in the presentation. I would start by saying we're very excited to make the presentation to council finally on the Sustainability Master Plan. There have been a number of milestones to get us to this point, and there's been a lot of engagement in the community in the past, but also amongst the varying departments to get us to this point of presenting this to council tonight. So if we can go to the next slide. Just as way as of background, this process has been a number of years in the making. So council did provide direction to staff back in 2021 with the adoption of a staff report to bring forward the Integrated Sustainability Master Plan. Following that in 2022, council did declare the climate emergency. And obviously through the previous corporate strategic plan, but also this strategic plan, there is very clear indication of the priority of the development of the ISMP, or the Integrated Sustainability Master Plan, and clear indication of climate change mitigation and adaptation being a priority for the town. So the plan that is being presented to council tonight, both through the presentation and the future staff report that's on the agenda, does establish a timeline and targets specifically to the 2030 timeline for implementation of a number of action items. And if we can go to the next slide. I'll turn it over to Niharika to carry on with a few of the slides.
Thank you, Andrea. So I'll speak to the more technical aspects of the plan itself and give you a bit more context. A large part of sustainability is the readiness to face climate change impacts and to develop a proper understanding of the actual risks from climate change in Innisfil. We did a thorough study of historical and future climate and weather information for our town and region. And just to recap some expected climate impacts, which have also been shown on the master plan, we're expecting average annual temperatures here to increase 30% by 2050, resulting in a tremendous increase in heat effects like heat waves. The intensity of 1 in 2 and 1 in 100-year storms are expected to increase by 18%, and so are days with heavy rain on average. Winters are getting warmer, which will result in decreasing lake ice, among many other effects. So we are living in the time of climate change, so many physical impacts on our infrastructure, property, environment, public health and safety, and the overall quality of life in our town. All of these effects are already being experienced. So we prioritize that we need to reduce carbon emissions so that our overall impact as the town on global warming is reduced, and also to ensure that the town's assets, services, staff, programs, policies, and the environment and the larger community are prepared and resilient to the local impacts of climate change. So all of these impacts do come at a price for Innisfil. If we do not take the necessary actions, what are the consequences of maintaining a business as usual approach? For one, the town will be paying over $3.2 million in the form of carbon taxes this decade from 2020 to 2030. And this is from the fuel usage in our emission-producing assets like buildings, vehicles, and equipment. There are other costs associated with climate hazards, and they're accelerating infrastructure deterioration, which is further resulting in the need for higher capital investments, for more frequent rehabilitations and earlier renewals. Municipalities like ours bear the brunt of costs of damage of climate hazards up to 4 times greater than the province, often because we're on the front line of several impacts. And finally, we also have the larger social cost of carbon, and these are the larger indirect damages from climate change, and we often also end up absorbing a large portion of the costs from effects to community health, air quality, ecosystems, and service disruptions. Redirecting these funds towards community necessities, services, and greening initiatives may offer more beneficial outcomes. So in developing this plan, the town has embraced the overarching principle of guaranteeing a lasting commitment to climate resilience, environmental stewardship, and operational sustainability. Climate change action is a big part of sustainability, but we wanted to tackle issues that go beyond just those related to climate change, and that's why we wanted to address the larger scope of sustainable and environmental issues at the town through the ISMP. So up top here, you can see the vision for the ISMP that was developed using the guidance of steering group, which is building a sustainable, climate resilient, and low carbon community. So now we get to see some high-level targets and goals that were established in the ISMP. And like Andrea said earlier, the plan takes us from 2024 to 2030. So all actions have been designed to begin implementation by 2030. The actions in this plan will reduce corporate emissions per capita by 38% by 2030. However, it's to be noted that actions haven't been developed for years beyond 2030 in this version. We have displayed the impact of continuing to implement the actions in this plan by 2040 and 2050. It's also to be noted that these goals and targets should be taken as minimum performance targets that staff will endeavor to surpass. So this is just an overview slide of the top ways this plan makes an impact on sustainability. Actions range from reducing corporate emissions to reducing climate impacts, reducing waste, enhancing placemaking, enhancing the natural environment and resources, and finally supporting sustainable economic prosperity in our community. To reiterate, we have slotted all of these actions under mitigation and adaptation sections in the plan for the purposes of simplicity. And also, you will find that a lot of actions have multiple benefits by design that each help accomplish several of these top moves. Sorry, to go back. Yeah. Under the mitigation section of the plan, we have 31 actions geared towards reducing emissions and improving operational sustainability in the corporate fleet, facilities, lighting, waste, and the overall corporate governance sectors. A few examples of which include fleet and equipment conversions and electrifications, decarbonization of existing buildings and high-efficiency new buildings, developing a single-use plastic elimination policy, investigating district energy systems for existing and new town builds, developing a community energy plan, and developing key performance indicators. Under the adaptation section, we have 41 actions geared towards improving town property and asset resilience, sustainable land use planning and protecting natural assets, community engagement and innovation, emergency preparedness, monitoring, and corporate governance. And these are some examples. Creating low-impact development and climate-resilient public infrastructure integrations, developing a community sustainability guide for residents, businesses, and the overall community, increasing urban tree cover by 30%, creating green development standards for site plan applications, and developing a natural asset inventory and management strategy roadmap. With this, I will turn it over to Andrea again.
Thank you. So in terms of the financial impacts, as we noted in the staff report later on and within the ISMP document, there are no direct financial impacts, but the recommendations do have a number of financial implications. Some of those are already incorporated into approved capital budgets and programs, and you'll see a number of those listed on the right-hand side of the slide, and those total about $174,000 currently in approved capital budgets. And then within the proposed budget that will come to council to be presented in November, staff have identified $100,000 as an implementation for ISMP items. So within that, there would be different recommendations that would be brought forward to be recommended to council within the prioritization of the action items. Similar to many of the other master plans, all of the recommendations would have to be aligned with other town master plans and other priorities of the town to determine which ones would be recommended in future budget cycles for implementation. But there are other measures that certainly would continue to be implemented that don't have the same financial implications. There are also currently staff resources, both in the dedicated sustainability catalyst, which is a contract position, but also within each of the departments that would continue to play a role in implementing the ISMP actions. And finally, we have to look at this in the cost of doing nothing. So there are obviously financial implications in terms of not actually making those investments. And so certainly we have to look at all of the recommended actions in line with the corporate strategic plan and the capital projects and determine those recommendations that would come forward to future council deliberations. And next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, in the staff report that is on the agenda, there are a number of indications that were brought forward. One, reaching back out to the Partners for Climate Protection in terms of the completion certificates for milestones 2 and 3 that have been now completed with the adoption of the plan, assuming we get to that point. And then the establishment of both an internal project tracker, so all of the action items, who the leads are, what the status is, what are the timelines and financial implications, but also the establishment of KPIs or metrics in terms of tracking the implementation and how are we aligning to the target that has been identified. There is also an indication in the recommendations to develop the project scope for the development of a community energy plan, and then looking at annual reporting to council on the implementation and the actions and where we are at in terms of the status of those that we would look to come back in early 2025. The other thing I would note, it is highlighted in the staff report, but through the ISMP, the one thing that you would note if you had read through it was that we were very intentional that water and wastewater, which are not town services, but in services as a separate entity, have not been included in the ISMP document. So they would be subject to in services considering those separately in the future. Next slide, please. So as we've noted through the presentation, but also in the ISMP and the staff report, the completion of the document that's being presented to council tonight does align with the town's strategic plan in terms of priority number 2, specifically the development and then the implementation of the ISMP document to ensure that the town is doing its corporate part in terms of protecting the environment and attributing to that long-term globally sustainable future within the town. It is a strategic approach that we can take to advancing climate mitigation and adaptation in the varying action items. And it does establish a number of goals and recommended actions in order to be able to achieve that 38% target that's been identified to 2030. So the ISMP itself really establishes that framework for all town staff in terms of prioritizing items that would come forward in capital projects, what is to be implemented, and to bring those forward to council for consideration with each budget cycle. Next slide. So we want to thank you for allowing us a few minutes to sort of highlight some of the areas within the ISMP. It's obviously a much broader document, but we'd certainly be happy to answer any questions now or when the staff report in the ISMP is considered later. Thank you, Mayor Dolan.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Naharika, very much for that presentation. Do we want to wait for the staff report, or are we going to take questions now? Okay, so we'll wait. If you don't mind, Ms. Lee, Director Lee, hanging on, we'll do it when we get to that. Yes, Ms.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there are any questions that are specific to the presentation, that should be asked now, as opposed to questions to the recommendation and the report.
All right, so does anybody have any questions specific to the presentation? Councillor Waters.
Just one. I think one of the best things about the entire report is the data that you collected, because any good, successful community corporate plan is based on the numbers that you have. So I just wanted to, I thought you might go over them in terms of letting council, we can read too, I guess, but I was kind of waiting for that piece. So I was just kind of curious why you didn't go into, that bit of data and talking about where our carbon emissions come from. So, but I was just kind of curious on that. Thank you.
Naharika?
Through you, Madam Mayor. We do break it down in the report and the larger plan itself, but just to keep it succinct and simple for the purposes of a presentation, we just wanted to showcase the higher level targets. But I'm happy to share the data and go over with you at a later time or whenever permissible.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And for those watching who maybe haven't seen it yet, the entire report is in the council agenda this evening, if you're more interested in digging into the details of that. Any other questions on the presentation? Seeing none, then could I please ask for a mover and a seconder that the delegation, regarding item C1, staff report, integrated sustainability master plan, be received. And that's moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. That takes us to item, thanks again for the presentation, and we'll have some more discussion, I'm sure, when the item comes up. That takes us to item number 7, any committees that you've been requested to represent the town of Innisfil at, if you have any updates. Councillor Richardson.
We had our first of the new season, I guess, of our library board meeting. It was really interesting. We got to hear a lot about their summer programs. They gave us some really interesting numbers. Over the summer, they had, just in July and August, they had just over 30,000 people visit the library with 6,248 program attendees, which was interesting to hear. Just under 300 children's programs with 3,347 participants, 31 teen programs with 469 participants, and 170 tinker shops with 1,154 participants. We also learned about a new staff member, Stephanie Hayes-Adams, whose role is the Community Service Navigator Specialist, and she's one of the only in the system, I guess, that she's the connector of all programs for those in need. So it was really interesting to hear about her new role at the library.
Thank you so much, and I believe that was partially funded through the County of Simcoe, so we're very grateful for that. Anyone else? Councillor Constantine.
So we have our meeting today for the museum and the barn, and they just have one simple changes, that they will be opening now year-round from Wednesday to Saturday from 10 to 3:30. So they will be opening right through, every day. Right.
Thank you so much for that. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yesterday at Council, we had a presentation from the paramedics and the plans they have moving forward. The big ticket item was the MPDS, which is taking effect November 13th, the Medical Priority Dispatch System. What we have now currently, the system we have is they don't ask very many questions before they triage the paramedics and they send them out on calls. So this is done in real time and they dig in a lot harder into the questions, asking more detailed and they go further with them. This way we don't have the two children, for example, one children has a very bloody nose and the blood keeps coming, as opposed to a child who's having a cardiac issue, both being sent out at the same time. And as it progresses, because they go through such detail, the acuity, I believe is the term they used, you actually have the child with a cardiac arrest, for example, taking priority. They've broken it down into 5 categories now, color-coded. So, for example, purple, which is the most important, cardiac arrest, choking, issues with breathing, followed by red, such as cardiac chest pain, acute seizure, an active assailant, or breathing problems. Followed by orange, which is more abdominal pain, post-seizure, where you can actually have someone stabilized until help arrives, or levels of bleeding. Then it falls down into yellow, where it goes into mental health, and they might, instead of directing it through the paramedics, put it to the coast team, for example, and have someone who can come in a very calm, rational manner and approach a situation such as that. Minor collisions. Finally, it goes to green, which is fainting, someone feels ill, or minor burns. And the benefit of this is that it reduces the calls that our firefighters answer because they respond to so many medical calls now. It establishes a system that may not activate them as frequently, allowing them to service the community in other ways. Another way is it reduces the lights and sirens calls approximately 37%, from 77% to 40%. The idea of an ambulance racing through the town is something that we always had to be aware of. Traffic could be interceded, children might be on the way on the roads, and what the case may be. This takes that completely off the table. To put it in perspective, for Simcoe County, last year they got over 90,000 calls in 2023, and this year they're expecting 5,000 to 6,000 more. So basically put, it enhances the system so that they're more effectively established and dispatched, which I think is incredible because you're out there saving lives, right? And this does it in a more efficient way with less burnout for our paramedics and greater responses to the more important calls that are out there. After the meeting, the mayor and I went over with other members of County Council to Simcoe County Museum for the groundbreaking for their Innovation and Transportation Gallery. And the best part is the groundbreaking wasn't done with shovels, it was done with a 1922 steam-powered Erie shoveler. It was cool. And I believe that Councillor Waters would be very delighted to hear that the building is going to be net zero. It's going to be made of mass timber and have solar panels for electricity. So they're looking forward while maintaining the past in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any updates? Seeing none, I just have a couple. The Ontario Small Urban Municipalities met virtually last week, and we had on the line with us the Attorney General and the Parliamentary Assistant Saunderson. We were talking about the tenant-landlord tribunal and the length of time it takes to process that, and that it is creating a lot of difficulties. It's keeping landlords out of the rental business because they don't want to deal with tenants that are not paying. It's causing a lot of calls to our police service for landlord-tenant disputes. And we did hear that they have hired 80 new adjudicators. They're shortening the length of the process and putting more decision makers, or allowing the adjudicators to make more decisions more quickly so they don't end up dragging out for months and months. So that was good news. The Traffic Safety Advisory Committee met, but we're going to hear more about that later, so I won't get into that. South Simcoe Police Board meeting this morning, and last evening we swore in four brand new recruits. So it was wonderful to see them and their families. They're very proud families as they got their warrant and their badge for the first time. And today, 5 members of the Ontario Police are at Police College that will be coming out to do our, will be joining our service. They'll have to ride with a coach officer for a while, but some more recruits are on the way. And then finally, you'll notice the flag at Town Hall will be half staff on Sunday for the Canadian National Police Memorial Day. 5 of our members have traveled to OPC today, and they're doing the Ride to Remember on bikes to Toronto. And then there'll be a Run to Remember. We again have about 8 of our police officers, including our deputy chief, doing that run. So they run actually from Toronto to Ottawa before they participate in the National Police Memorial Day, which is the 46th in Ottawa. So it's they run like 30 kilometers a day, so it's pretty high intensity, and I know the deputy was just lamenting on how she got talked into it, but I know they make us proud because we do have 3 of our own sworn officers. First Al Kuzmich in 2002, and then Morgan and Devon in 2022, and so their names will be read in Ottawa on Sunday. And then finally, the deputy covered most of the things that were happening at the county. Much of that museum expansion is thanks to a bequest from a gentleman. $5 million was left to the museum for this expansion. And the only other thing I would add to what happened at the county is there is currently an open viral open house or virtual open house on the county website. The county is in the planning stages to 4-lane County Road 4, better known as Yonge Street, right from Bradford up to the City of Barrie limits. And there is detailed design or initial design on the website that you can look up and check and see how it integrates with your property or make comments on what you think should or shouldn't be happening in those particular areas. And the trouble is, comments are due by Friday. So if you're going to comment, now is the time. And that was it for me. So we'll move on now to item 8, which is our consent list. We'll go through all of the items that have staff reports attached to them, and we will then either refer them to committee of the whole for further debate, or we'll pass them at the end of the meeting as is stated in the agenda. So item A1 is the special council meeting minutes dated September 11th. A2, the council meeting minutes from September the 11th. B1, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. B2, the Innisfil Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Drodge?
I'd like to refer that to committee of the whole, but specifically B2 to B. Can I do that?
Why don't we just defer the whole thing, and then we'll get to that when we get there.
Okay, then I'd like to B2
Thank
to committee
you.
of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we had C1, the Integrated Sustainability Master Plan. Councillor Waters, not surprised. Then we have D1, the camera-based enforcement update. I don't think I need to refer it, Director Bowman, but just a question as to if you could just give us any update. I know we're looking forward to, I'll make a quick anecdote first from the Police Services Board meeting. We get reports on stats of things like collisions, and Barrie's had, Bradford has had, I think, 2 or 3 cameras for a couple of months now, and they had a significant drop in collisions in August. So I'm just putting it out there. But anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. We are pretty excited about the results that the red light camera is seeing at in Cookstown, with a 91% reduction in the red light running we've seen when we measured at baseline to what we're seeing now. And that's very exciting. The ASC program is coming along nicely. Our revised go-live date is now November 5th. We received notice today that the camera company responsible for bringing in that hardware is experiencing a delay in their shipment, but we'll get that up and running as soon as possible.
Thank you for that. Then we had item E, bylaws. We had none. Item F1 was the AMCTO's seeking support for changes to the Municipal Elections Act. And I'm glad we don't have to read it. But it's, I would just add that, yeah, it all makes sense. We need to make sure that we always improve, and I'm looking forward to seeing if the actual voters list improves this time, because it'll be the first time the Government of Ontario is doing it as opposed to the MPAC people. So I'm hoping that we see some improvements there. G1, the Child Care Worker and Childhood Educator Day proclamation. And that's it. So we'll go then to the consent list continued. And we just got those 2 items pulled. So mover and a seconder, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, C1.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Richardson, Councillor Zanella, all those in favor? That's carried. And we'll go to our first item, which was, we'll resolve to committee first, please. Councillor Ices and Councillor Saunders, all those in favor? That is carried. Now we'll go to our first item. And that was Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. My seconder is Councillor Saunders. So basically, I really appreciate the comments and the consideration from the Heritage Committee. And in reading the Carlson's Structural Condition Assessment Report and the Heritage Impact Assessment Report, I would like to get some more comments from staff, if possible, on the or I would like to get comments on why the cultural heritage value versus why it should be removed and replaced. So basically, I want to know kind of where staff stands currently, because I believe that the Heritage Committee really didn't get a lot of information from staff and their comments.
Just before we go to Manager Correa, I think, Madam Clerk, you had a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. The first motion that we need to do is to divide the question. It's because there are 3 parts to that recommendation. So it is our recommendation that the report be received and that clauses A, B, and C be divided and considered individually. So if we could vote on this motion, and then we would go to A to dispense with that, and then we would go to the one that Councillor Drodge had pulled as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my error. I'm sorry, Councillor Drodge. So are the current movers and seconders okay with dividing the question? Okay. All in favor of dividing the question? Thank you. That's carried. So we'll go to Clause A. So that's moved by Councillor. Do you have, we need a seconder for this one as well?
Yeah, I didn't realize, so I need a seconder for each one, A, B, and C? So yeah, Councillor Richardson would second A.
Thank you. So any questions or comments on A? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Next is B. And Councillor Drodge, and your seconder was Councillor Saunders. Sorry, go ahead.
So basically, that I thank the Heritage Committee for their consideration, and that after reading the consultant's structural condition assessment report and reading the Heritage Impact Assessment report, I would like staff to provide comment on the cultural heritage value versus why it should be removed, replaced, as the consultant recommends.
Manager Correa.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And firstly, I would also like to thank our Heritage Committee for their role in heritage and protecting our HCD. And just to provide a little bit of context into this particular matter, I do want to acknowledge that this structure, the garage, is recognized within the HCD as a Class B, meaning it does meet multiple criteria within the Heritage Act and our HCD guidelines. And because of that, there were a number of studies completed before we got to council today. Initially, there was the Cultural Heritage Evaluation Report, which led to a more fulsome HIA, Heritage Impact Assessment, as well as a Structural Integrity Report. Each kind of read independently and comprehensively do come to similar conclusions, which staff do agree with, but I do want to provide a little bit more context. And so with most of these studies, there are a number of alternatives, mitigation measures, and conservation methods that are explored. The first option that was explored was do nothing and leave the garage alone. Unfortunately, particularly when read with the structural integrity report, it was determined that it would lead to the eventual loss of this cultural heritage value because of the major rehabilitation that would eventually be required would have a substantial impact on its attributes. The second option was considered was major rehabilitation, so preserve the garage but make a major rehabilitation. Ultimately, this is not the preferred option given the costs associated with the rehabilitation and its impacts on heritage integrity. The third option considered, which is ultimately the preferred option, is the demolition and replacement. And so when you read the heritage report, but also the structural report, it's evident and clear that something needs to be done quite soon, really before the winter time is pretty paramount in terms of the standing of the building right now. Sorry. With that said, there's a number of mitigation measures and conservation strategies that the report does require. For example, any reconstruction would have to respect that the height is to be 1.5 stories. They would have to use traditional materials, including the attempted salvaging of any materials of the current garage. They would have to maintain the location, including the setbacks and the facade in relation to the street of where the current garage resides, as well as use the same driveway, as well as using any historical styled windows, doors, et cetera. So there's a number of detailed recommendation within the heritage report that when this is to be reconstructed, that it would need to respect and maintain as much as possible the harmony of the current garage. It's on the same property as the former town hall, and when the HCD was put in place, it was there was substantially more, detail for the actual what's now the theater. But through this study, the HIA and the structural assessment, it was very specific to the garage, and staff do agree with the findings and conclusions that the appropriate next step is demolition and replacement.
Councillor Drodge?
Thank you for that. And just one other question. Has staff engaged the Cookstown Theatre Hall for any comments that they might have had?
Through your worship to Councillor Droge, yes, our staff have been in touch with the president of the South Simcoe Theatre Group regularly through this process. They have expressed to us the additional asks that they would love to have in that garage, and we have been working with them on options whereby they can make contributions through grants and other fundraising that they're doing to add on some of those nice-to-adds. They've also expressed a recommendation to reuse some of the material, including some of the cedar lining that's on the inside of the garage, so that's in alignment with what staff's recommendation is. So far we're working strongly in harmony, and they're anxious to see some changes made so that they can have their space back.
Go ahead, Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. So listening to what you've just said, I'd like to propose a new recommendation, if that's possible, and I'd like to see permission to allow them to demolish the building, but under the HCD guidelines, which Cookstown is part of. And also, I'd like to hear that the theater and staff do want to reuse the materials and try to make it look as much as what it used to look. And again, guiding all through the HCD. So I would like to put a new recommendation forward if that's possible.
Madam Clerk?
Through your worship, we do have a motion on the floor. Council has the ability to vote on this motion, or if the mover and seconder and council as a whole is willing to have Councillor George's revised recommendation come up, we would move to that one as a revised recommendation, as opposed to voting on this recommendation.
So I'm going to suggest that just to follow the proper paper trail, then we should vote on this motion. And if it's defeated, then Councillor Drodge could put his new motion up. Does that make sense to everyone? Deputy Mayor Fowler?
It appears there's maybe a thought process that's going on here that we're voting on the idea of doing it or not. What we did with the Heritage Advisory Committees, we're asking for harder numbers. The first report we got was from engineers. The second was to replace it completely. These are two separate reports. They're very close in price, but we want to get a harder number to see if we can manage to rehabilitate the building for a comparable cost as opposed to replacing the building. This is all this is. We're looking further into it. We're not saying keep or demolish at this moment in time. We're asking for how much will it cost, what's the comparison, and is it feasible? And at that point in time, if it's truly out of range, the Heritage Committee we've already had this discussion where we're willing to say, you know what, we want to save it, but the cost is too great. What can we do? This is why we're going through the grant process and everything else to reduce the cost. If it's a comparable cost of a few $1,000s, even $5,000 or $6,000 to rehabilitate and maintain it, then that's something that the Heritage Committee would put forth for council to vote on. All we're looking for today is just some harder numbers so that they can have heating in it, that maintain it, that when they revamp it, they can do the foundation, that they can have lighting in it, that they can maintain the essence of the building itself. And what we have now, we've agreed we don't have enough information. That's why we're just asking for more. When it comes back, we can vote on it then at that point in time.
Councillor Drodge, and then I'll go to staff.
Well, this is towards staff. So do we have any timing, budget factors, or anything like that? Do we have those numbers already?
Go ahead, Mr. Duca.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, we do have approximate estimates from the structural condition assessment, and it's approximately 30% more. So I believe we're looking 60-ish thousand versus 90-ish thousand around there, or maybe it was 70 and 90. I'll have to check the actual numbers, but it was 70 and 95 approximately for the reconstruction, demolition, rebuild versus rehabilitation. But just, I would like to note that the rehabilitation, much like the demolishing and reconstruction, does not include extras such as heat at this point. That would be some of the additional ones, as Nicole mentioned, that we're working with as provisional items that we could add if there's additional funding provided. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Worship. Just one other question. So the timing part of this, because I know that the Cookstown Theatre is anxiously awaiting for this building to be rehabilitated or rebuilt. What would the time be versus demo and starting new construction versus doing more assessments to consider if it could be rehabilitated?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, that's a great point. Is the structural condition is key right now, is that we need to do something before the winter, whether that means demolishing it or we have to spend money to stabilize it through reinforcement, or we have to cordon off an area, a safe area that would keep it safe if it were to collapse, because the report doesn't indicate that there is potential for imminent collapse in certain areas, certain aspects of it potentially could fail imminently. And the concern would be with snow loading for that. And blocking off a safe area is not really a practical idea because it would extend into the roadway. So we would end up blocking part of the roadway through the winter really until we decided to do something. So regardless of which direction, we have to do something to the structural condition. And as one of the reports notes, that given the extensive rehabilitation required, it would already adversely impact the heritage integrity of the building because you have to replace so much. It would adversely affect that integrity. And so that's kind of where we're at. We need to do something. And with the demolition and salvaging what we can move that forward where we keep as many aspects as possible while being cost efficient because we don't have to maintain the structure through this winter.
Councillor Drodge?
Thank you, Worship. So just for clarification, staff's intention, if we did permit demolition, would be to demo that before winter to prevent all those safety issues?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, that is correct. The plan would be we would like to issue the RFP as soon as possible, and the first step of that RFP is the demolition, which includes the salvaging efforts.
Councillor Drodge?
So I would still like to put the motion forward to I guess, vote on the current recommendation, and then depending on how that vote goes, I would propose a new recommendation.
So, Madam Clerk, I'm confused. So we've had recommendations up before and then had a revised recommendation, haven't we?
What typically happens, though, it's where a councillor is going to move a motion, but he's moving a revised recommendation. This one has already been moved.
Okay.
But that being said, there's two ways that council can proceed. One, they can vote on this recommendation, or if council would like to go to a revised by consensus, if the mover and the seconder are willing to pull it back,
okay,
and council's fine with that, to go to a revised recommendation, because I think that may have been the intent of the council member.
Right.
After hearing the discussion, that's council's choice.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that has been done in the past as well.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're procedurally correct. So the mover and the seconder can withdraw this recommendation and present a new recommendation if they so wish.
I'm looking at my seconder. I believe that's okay. So I would like to withdraw this recommendation and propose a new recommendation.
Through your worship, does that revised recommendation meet with what the intent, how you would like them to proceed?
Councillor Drodge, is that what your intent was?
Correct. Staff be directed to remove and replace the Cookstown Theatre garage and salvage, reuse as much of the original structure. Yes, that's my recommendation.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this recommendation? All those in favor of the recommendation? Those opposed? That's carried. And item C. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Fowler, you wanted to, was this your revised recommendation?
Yes, this was my revised recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I need a seconder for this, please. Councillor Drudge.
Did you want to speak to it, Deputy Mayor?
Well, at this moment in time, we're looking to get some information, and if we can see about putting this in motion, the budgetary meetings would be a good place to begin with this, to allot the necessary funding and discussions at that point in time.
Any questions or comments on item C? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next, we had item C1. And that was Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. My seconder is the Deputy Mayor. No. Okay. So we've received the report and the presentation from Naharika. Oh, by the way, before I go any further, congratulations. I believe you tied the knot well.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Thank
there
you.
go. Forgot. I was going to mention that last time. I forgot. So
It's 1 month today, actually.
there we go.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So we received the report from NAHARCA and the presentation. I wanted to add another recommendation to this, and then would like to defer it because I don't think residents have had enough time to read the document. It's a relatively detailed and lengthy document, and as we can tell by the hordes of people here who are chanting for it or not against it, that the word didn't get out. And so I would like to allow people to read the report and then also be able to see the recommendation that I've added to this. So I think it should be up there, I believe.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Worship. This was seconded by, who is your seconder?
Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor. Okay, and now, if you could put that up. And would you like to put a deferral on the floor to vote?
Yes, I would.
Can I ask, though, first that we had, because once a motion to defer up, then we can't discuss this motion anymore. So could we not just leave this up for a moment to see if anybody has questions or comments on your addition prior to motion to defer?
I'm good with that, yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councillor Waters that this is a pretty in-depth report, and the public should get a chance to look at it further. I was curious about maybe staff's comments on how this report would affect upcoming budget deliberations. It does on page, under the financial summary, it mentions about some budget implications, short-term, medium-term, long-term. By deferring it, are we going to affect any of the processes that are involved with that? Would be my question.
Am I going to direct to Lee for that? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through to Councillor Ices. So no, as I indicated in the presentation, there are a number of projects that are already approved and ongoing in the current budget. And then in the proposed 25-26 budget, it is, I'm going to call it a lump sum that's also identified essentially for implementation of the ISMP. So that is already been put forward by staff, and the budget is not being presented to council until November to start that process. So deferring until October 6th doesn't have a financial implication. Thank you.
Any other questions? I had one, if I could, please, and that was just I'm curious about the wording. Would advise council and assist staff to develop and accelerate. So keep in mind my governance hat on about the church and state rule between what staff does and what governance does. I'm wondering if there's any concern about, does that blur the line at all as far as, who drives the grader?
Well, I'm glad you reread the recommendation because this is not the one I sent the second time. I rewrote it to kind of clarify this piece. And just to elaborate a little bit, is that I would have envisioned the staff person would be sitting on this committee, and so they would be providing information to the committee, and in return, that staff person would be able to take some of the information that the committee has researched and whatever, and they could take that information back with them. So the staff, so that was I think the staff name was there just to indicate they are involved in the committee. I don't think depending on what the terms of reference are, they probably would not have a vote.
Thank you. I just wondered if you have a copy of the draft that you were thinking of. Clerks are still looking.
Yeah.
I was a little worried about to me it was just a little blurry about the role of the governance and the role of the staff person.
Mayor Dolan, can I suggest maybe a 5-minute recess so we can
Sure.
figure out the version control?
Yeah.
That sounds good. Thank you. So it's 8:40, so we'll come back at 8:45.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Just see if I can go down here. I sent you a whole new one. Unless that's it. Okay. Through Patty, revised edition? Okay.
All right, everyone, it's 8:45, so we're back. And I'm just going to pass it over to Councillor Waters. I think we've come up with a solution with our wording and our deferral.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just going to ask that it be deferred to October 9th, and that way it gives residents time to read the document, and then hopefully a few of them will come out and ask a few more questions in terms of our corporate sustainability plan, but also what I'm mostly interested is that if the new recommendation about a committee is that we'll find a few faces who are interested in maybe participating in it. So it's also a kind of a search and mission to find those people interested in that community piece. So, and the reason I think this is so important is because resources, as we're reminded by our CAO, are very, very important and are very crucial in terms of how we divide staff time up. And, you know, it's taken us some time to get all the data for our corporate sustainability plan. And I just happened to be reading Collingwood's corporate plan, and they also have done their community plan already. And one number stood out glaringly to me was that their corporate emissions are 1.6% of the community emissions. So what we've got here for corporate is part of the solution, but the big piece is what we can do with the community, and I think that's going to require a huge task in terms of community involvement and the way we can help staff out in terms of being an advisory board or however the terms of reference does that for us. I just want to have that piece built into it because it's a huge piece, but it can also make a huge difference in terms of what our emissions will be down the road.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on the motion to defer? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, we'll have the RISE recommendation, please, and that would be moved by Councillor Drodge and seconded by Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That's carried. And adopting the recommendations from Committee of the Whole would be moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That's carried. There are no notices of motion or notice of motion which have been given, so we'll move on to announcements. I'm going to take the liberty of going first tonight because I have a number of people I want to thank, and so if you don't mind, I'll try not to step on everyone else's announcements, but I did have some important thank yous. So first of all, some sad news. We had lost two very important community members. The first one, his funeral was today, his visitation was yesterday. His name is Mike Brown, a resident of Cookstown. Mike grew up in Gore Bay as a funeral director, but he joined the legislature. He won this provincial seat for Algoma, Manitoulin in 1987. He served 24 years in the legislature and in many roles, his last one being Speaker of the House. When he lost his seat, he moved to Cookstown and called me right away and offered to help on any committees, was very interested in helping me with the Cookstown bypass, totally integrated into the community quickly as far as volunteering in many aspects. So he will be very, very sadly missed by his wife, Wendy, who is a Cookstown resident, and his family, and our deepest condolences to Mike Brown. The other one is Sarah Simon. Many of you will know the editor of the Innisfil Today is Chris Simon. It's his wife, taken far too young at the age of 42. So there will be a celebration of her life on October the 6th at the, I can't think of the name of the place it's at. It's on Kaplan Avenue, and it's that large convention center on Kaplan Avenue. Liberty North, thank you, it's at Liberty North. So anybody who can attend, it's between 1 and 3, and there'll be remarks at 2 o'clock. And the family's asking that you wear a splash of color when you attend. Both Sarah's kids, well, Sarah's parents are Innisfil residents as well, and both kids attended Lake Simcoe School, and his daughter danced at Miss Jenny's. So very integrated into the community, and a huge loss. And our thoughts and prayers go out to Chris and his family during this very difficult time. Now on to the thank you parts. So first of all, I wanted to say a big thank you to Gary Chandler. Gary is a gentleman who's dedicated his life to first responders, and he's just donated his 4th defibrillator to the town of Innisfil, and that was at the Guildford Church, United Church, and he's been very, very proactive in our community, and I'm sorry I'm stealing your thunder there, Councillor Drodge. I want to thank staff very much, particularly Director Lee and Manager Laura Thompson for a hugely successful mayor's breakfast that was at Friday Harbor. They did a fantastic job, and the room was so diverse. It was full, but it was diverse. There were students there there was high school students, there was college and university students, there was a lot of startups through the DMZ were there, and then there was major employers there. And it did generate a lot of conversation, and I've had a few visits to our employment lands out at Innisfil Heights over the last few weeks, people generating ideas and questions from that meeting. So that was a wonderful thing to be a part of. I want to thank the Ahmadiyya Muslim Society for hosting their Run for Innisfil. It was really great for them to do it for a 2nd year in a row, and to raise money for our hospital is very important. And I also want to thank the groups at the Candy for doing the wonderful Family Fall Fest. I thought it was very well organized and appreciate that. A big thank you to Jennifer Richardson and her crew for the Community Partners Golf Tournament. Again, I know everybody who was there will want to come back next year because it was so well run. And then finally, a big thank you to the Innisfil Minor Baseball Association. I attended the closing, along with Deputy Mayor, attended the closing barbecue last Sunday. It has grown substantially. There was over 400 children enrolled this year, so about 600 people at this big barbecue. And they're so well organized, this group, and they've got it right. It's not about, well, I guess with the more elite teams, it's about winning, but with the rest, with the house leagues, it's about skill development, but it's just about having fun. And I could tell that it's very popular in Innisfil and takes a huge amount of volunteers to organize something like that. So thank you for all of those things. And then I just wanted to point out a couple of things that are coming up. So there's a pancake breakfast this Saturday. Oh, I'm doing it again. Sorry. Forget the pancake breakfast. The ward councillor will talk about that. I'll talk about the Truth and Reconciliation sunrise ceremony on 7 a.m. on Monday morning. Please come out for Truth and Reconciliation Day. And we'll have a solemn ceremony there, but I hope you'll enjoy it. And then we have Innisfil coming up. I'm doing it again. I will go last from now on, I promise. Now you know what I feel like by the time it gets to me and there's none left. So that was it. The only other thing that I'm sure none of you have yet is to keep your eyes open on our website for our Winter Weekends launch. February 1st is the date we've landed on for the breakfast for council. So I look forward to, although I don't want to look forward to winter, I look forward to winter weekends. And I'll pass it on to Ward 1 Councillor Kevin Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Just a few items. September 29th, our Innisfil Spartans are in action again against the Penetang Kings at 3:30. Our Innisfil Farmers Market is winding down the season. The last day is October 10th. The market runs from 1 to 6 on Thursdays still, so come out and get some good local produce. Also on October 10th, there's a Speak Your Mind, Let's Talk mental health event at Town Hall from 6 to 8:30 for youth grades 6 to 12 and parents. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. Councillor Constantine? Would you please pass on our thanks to the Candy Group for such a great job you guys did on Sunday? Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so on September 20, so tomorrow at the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library, there is a Secure Your Ride event hosted by the South Simcoe Police from 5 to 7 p.m. On October 1st, there's a program called Why Truth and Reconciliation is Becoming a Global Story. That's also happening at Lakeshore from 5 till 7. Like you mentioned, on October 5th is the first annual Innisfil event. What I love the most is that there's actually going to be quite a few of our local community groups that are joining forces with the town to do this event. So it'll be really, really great, lots of fun for the entire family. And then ending up on October 7th is the Emerging Entrepreneur event hosted by the DMZ and the Economic Development team at the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library.
Wonderful. I'm still glad I left you with some. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Euchre is back at the Lions Hall on September 27th. It's $13 to play. Doors open at 7 p.m. There's also a spaghetti fundraiser dinner for childhood cancer at the Lions Hall on September 29th from 4 until 8. And then I was going to say something about the Sunrise Committee, but that was already done. But I'll just say it again just because it's important. And then October 6th is Kids Bingo at the Lions Hall. Harry Potter's theme, free with admission with food bank donation.
Thank you so much. Councillor Zanella? Nothing. Councillor Saunders?
On September 28th and 29th, Friday Harbour has their Harbour Fest. It's a weekend of Bavarian style inspired fun and with themed menu and traditional music on the CIBC Pier.
Lovely. Thank you. Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. So October 5th, Cookstown Fire Station is doing their annual pancake breakfast from 8 to 11. October 6th, we have the delegation tonight, but there's the Heritage Walk. That's in Lefroy at the Grange Hall, and that starts at 12 p.m. And then I've got a couple. We got council October 9th. I'm going to bring these ones up. So we got a concert happening at the Guildford Hall October 19th. The band that's we're promoting this time is 30-06, and we also got a special DJ coming in, DJ Jesse Fex. And I'm also going to talk about October 20th. There's a soup contest at the Guildford Hall, so hopefully you can all attend there. And then I'm going to go reach out even farther, and October 23rd, there's going to be a roast beef dinner at the Guildford United Church, and that's on a Wednesday, October 23rd, and the dinings, there's two of them from 5 p.m. to 6:30, and hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh,
Deputy.
actually, I missed one more.
Sorry, go ahead,
My
Councillor.
bad, I apologize. And congrats to our new school, St. Andrews of Bassett Catholic School, just at Clarny Beach Road and 20th.
Thank you. I think they got their occupancy like the Monday of Labor Day weekend, so it was a thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Everyone for the past while has been incredibly busy. I've seen many members of council. Big shout out to the Library for Makerfest. That was actually a really big hit. Lots of young smiling faces there. I also hit the Open Doors Simcoe County event where I had a tour of Cookstown Theatre. Still haunted, apparently. It's a nice piece of property that if you ever get a chance to go and get a tour, it has a lot of history for the town. Many of us attended the Rotary Harvest Dinner, which was a fundraiser event, which went very well. Recently, many of us attended the Mosaic Life Festival held by the Ethnic Mosaic Alliance. Once again, a library. Seems to be a theme here. And we had Spanish, we had Muslim, we had Indian and Persian. There was food, there was dancing. I take no credit for my ability if you see me online. On top of that, I attended the Superhero Stomp by the Candlelighters of Simcoe County. They're a group that help families that have children with cancer. That was actually held in Barrie, but it was incredible to see so many people, and there was a lot of Batman. Tomorrow night, we have the Chabad Innisfil. They're holding a Rosh Hashanah reception. I'll be attending that. And on the 28th, the Lefroy Icebreakers are holding a cornhole tournament from 4 to 10 at the Morgan Russell Memorial Arena. It's to raise money for the kids and the teams. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the end of the announcements, and we'll go then right to our confirming bylaw and adjournment. So I'd ask for a mover and a seconder, please. For 9 o'clock, Councillor Drodge and Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everyone, and have a lovely rest of the evening.